Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Can you introduce yourself for us?
My name is Aram Ote. I'm the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Nigeria.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for speaking to me this afternoon. Here at the Africa Investor Summit, the conference here at the New York Stock Exchange. So tell us, what are some of the concerns that companies have in investing in Africa?
Yeah. Investors want to be sure that they'll get their money back. They want to be sure that they'll earn a reasonable return, particularly for the risks that they're taking. What we in Nigeria and in many other African countries are doing, which is part of what's fueling the appetite of investors to invest in our markets, is making sure that we follow global best practice. We're all members of the worldwide body of regulators that has 200 members. We abide by the 38 principles that have been put out as the standards for investing in world-class markets. In Nigeria, it's particularly important for us because not as many people understand Nigeria. We ensure that our enforcement regime is tough. We have zero tolerance for anything that's improper because we don't want an investor to have a bad experience, and we want to make sure that people abide by global best practice. We also believe that market development is very critical. Investors are worried about liquidity. We want to make sure that investors can enter and exit as easily as possible. And therefore, we've taken a number of steps to improve liquidity in our markets, including approving short selling, securities lending, market making, institutionalizing our market. We have a domestic investor base that's been a catalyst for both for foreign investments. We have a sovereign wealth fund. We have a pension industry that's 10 years old, but has raised almost $30 billion. We have a mutual fund industry that's growing because we think that that's also a good way for retail investors to invest. One other way is also to ensure that the market is diversified. We have diversity in terms of listings. There are about 200 companies that are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We have a bond market that is very developed. We have a bond market that has basically been fueled by a very good federal government bond market. The federal government has issued up to 20 years. Corporates have issued up to 7 years. State governments have issued up to 10 years. So there's enough there's a variety of types of issuers that you can focus on. The investment environment is also very good because you can repatriate dividend, you can repatriate your capital whenever you want to. The people feel that the public markets are really a way for you to take advantage of the opportunities that Nigeria offers in terms of its people, a young population, rising incomes, as well as the many sectors that are yet to basically actualize their potential.
With a growing youth and a growing young population of Nigeria, do you see a lack or need of more to be involved in the financial sector?
Oh, absolutely. We've got a very strong financial sector in the first place, particularly a banking sector. Some of Nigerian banks are the top 500 banks in the world. We have a central bank like ourselves that has been very tough on regulation, and therefore there's clearly an opportunity. But we also see them being innovative, responding to the needs of the young people today.
My name is Hubert Danso. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and Vice Chairman of Africa Investor.
And here at the conference for African investors, how can the infrastructure improve Africa, such as railroads and so forth?
Well, I think infrastructure is catalytic because it really does increase all the efficiency that trickles right across all the different sectors. So, for example, all the listed companies are already having to build in the inefficiencies of not having sustainable and modern infrastructure and communications and energy to build into their business model. So I think the moment that we can really improve the transportation and the energy infrastructure space, it's going to have a ripple effect right through in terms of job creation, in terms of pricing on products, in terms of intra-regional and international competitiveness of African goods and services, and of course mobility and building that real economic and political integration across the continent would certainly get a boost from those types of investments.
Now, Hubert, what are your thoughts on China having a footprint on Africa now and the growth of different countries such as Ethiopia and its infrastructure there?
Well, I think in terms of China, we're living in a globally competitive environment. I mean, within the continent, I always say it's most important for us to figure out exactly what we want and to be able to price it properly, and then go out to the rest of the world, be it China, Europe, North America, the Middle East, and really negotiate to get the best deal for our medium to long-term strategic development and growth.
My name is Benga Ogunjimi. I'm with LDI Africa, and I'm the founder and CEO.
And you are?
I'm Vivian Anugo with LDI Africa, Partnership Manager.
And tell us a little bit about your organization.
LDI Africa, it's a nonprofit social enterprise that connects African organizations and the professionals to the global marketplace using the service of skilled volunteers. So we do that with a fellowship program called the Emerging Institutions Fellowship Program. It connects young professionals, business and development professionals around the world to volunteer service opportunities at local businesses in Africa. We also have a reverse fellowship that gets entrepreneurs access to the United States by the way of traveling to the United States to serve and expand their business to the U.S.
Why do you feel it's important to educate and train the youth of tomorrow to grow the economy of Africa?
The African economy that we know now, particularly in the corporate Africa that we know, it's a fruition of a 2 decades work by diaspora who moved back 2 decades ago. So I think it's important for that trajectory to progress and more African professionals and business leaders actively participate and take ownership of the development of the continent. And that we'll continue to see. So our strategy to be a part of that conversation is to create opportunities to serve. And by the way of service, they can have access to the continent and also figure out opportunities that align with their career interest and professional skills.
So Vivian, tell us what industries or what training that you feel is prominent and most important.
That's for Africa's development. I think so far what we basically majoring is business, finance, international development. But what we recognize from this conference is that there's a lot of engineering, infrastructural development, ICT that's needed on the continent in terms of workforce development and the things that people have to offer based on the investments going on so far. So I would say every industry is needed in Africa right now because it's developing rapidly, but then there's more development that's needed in the long run.
Far as just being a woman, the two of us, and just working in the business corporate arena, where's the need or lack of far as education with women, the opportunities versus their male counterparts?
Ooh, I would say it varies. If you're talking about on the continent, I do know that there are not many women in leadership positions, but it is known that there are different sectors, different regions within Africa that women are more educated than the men, because the men usually go into informal markets while women go on to education. But that doesn't necessarily translate to leadership positions in corporate Africa, the corporate sector in countries. So I would say that more women are needed in professions, more women are needed in engineering, ICT, definitely. Like if we had to compare the fellowship applications that we do get, I would say that there are not many of them that are women. This may be due to responsibilities that they have here or back in the continent, whereas men who are more likely to be flexible to migrate to and from Africa.
My name is Inyang. I'm from Africa Investment Partner. So we have collectively getting some investors from America who's willing to go and invest in Nigeria, on the whole part of Africa. So we work as a facilitator to help them ease the way of some of the rules, regulation, or get them get some of the paper that they need so that they can be able to get into these countries and invest money. So we have been able to connect some of the many investors that's in the United States. Like as on Wednesday, we are about to put about 40 investors that was going to meet the president of Nigeria in particular during this UN session that are willing to invest about trillions of dollars investors that are willing to go to Africa. But this Wednesday we are hosting those ones with President Goodluck Jonathan.
So what are some of the apprehensions that a lot of the American companies and corporations have when it comes to investing in Africa?
Most of the challenges is about the rules and the regulations. So, I mean, the paperwork of they have to go through, not even going through, but sometimes when they get to a certain point, they cannot get some of this answer facilitated fast, or the hoops they have to go through. So that's when sometimes we comes in. We're trying to help them. Or if they say, you know what, we have people that are willing to, you know, sell or something, or crude oil in particular, they give us the name. We have other people in Nigeria, in particular, let me say, for example, that will vet those information out and tell them, you know what, with the help with the Nigerian ambassador, with other people on ground, tell them, you know what, these are the good people, so that the risk, we're trying to mitigate the risk for all these people not to, you know, because a lot of them, as already mentioned, they have cut their hand bone before. So that's when we come in. We bring people together and make things easy so that Africa can grow in prospect of the 21st century.
What are some of the sectors that need the most investment or the most growth, and particularly Nigeria, since that's where you're from, and then also too, that's also a country in Africa that you're representing. What are some of the prominent growth areas that are higher than others?
I mean, right now, probably like in 2 months ago, which Obama have called all the African nations for African Summit. I mean, one of the most prominent things is like energy, which the energy factors. Like the goal is to make sure that energy has grown to even to the rural area. Then the infrastructure, and then process of bringing investors so that they can be able to train the Nigerian people so that they'll be able to take those projects and maintain the project from whatever the investor leave the country. So those are the areas that they're actually focusing on. Even the African government is working with American investors because of their intellectual property. Because when after they come in, they will be able to train the Nigerians, then they'll be able to take it from there. Rather than other investors from, I don't want to mention the name, but from the Asian country, they refuse to hire the people in Africa so that the knowledge transfer is what Africa actually really need now in any aspect of investment, so that they'll be able to maintain the project, especially the infrastructure when the investors leave. So those are the areas that we are actually focusing on, how we can get people to work together and accomplish this goal.
So he doesn't want to say the name, but I'll say the name. The country he's referring to is China.
I didn't say that.
No, I said it. And Barbara, I'll go on record, Barbara Sam from Africa Connect. I'll go on record and say that. But no, on a more serious note, back to our conversation. So there's a high need to educate the youth of tomorrow to acquire these skills. There in Africa, also to Americans that are here studying, going back to their country, bringing the knowledge and the skill set that they have to implement into their country for the success and development.
Yeah, I mean, for that area, I mean, every time we always ask the government, because for the intellectual property, we ask them, what are the rules that they have in place? So when somebody bring the idea, I mean, the potency of, you know, maintaining your like contract, or, you know what, you brought the idea, nobody can copyright that idea for a certain period of time. So the government is promising that people comes in, they're working on that so that they can maintain. So that will encourage people that are in America, Africa in particular, and also Americans that are willing to take this technology back to Africa, give them the courage, which the government is working to deregulate and regulate some of this area, so that everybody can be able to, you know, benefit from their area of specialty. So that way, a lot of Nigerians or Africa in general is in America, they have a lot of knowledge. But this area is the barrier, like, oh, if I do a research and then I go back there, before you know, somebody's already copied it. But the governments have started working, as you can see in the forum today. All those areas have been touched, that everybody is working hand in hand, not only in one country, but in Africa in general, so that everybody can be able to protect the intellectual property, so that everybody can be able to grow.
I'm Zoran Milojevic. I'm managing Central Eastern European, Middle East and African desk at Auerbach Grayson. And Auerbach Grayson is a brokerage house. We started in 1993, and we're dealing in 125 countries in the world. And we usually have a local partner.
So you're here at the Africa Investors Conference. Are you looking to invest in Africa, or your company is looking to invest in Africa?
Well, our clients are big African investors. We helped African Investor Conference here by setting up one-on-one meetings with the corporations from Africa and with our clients. We deal with all North American institutional investors. They actually have a mandate to invest in overseas, in particularly Africa as well.
So what are some of the sectors that is prominent or need the strongest support or investment?
Well, all our investors are public. They're financial investors, so they are not necessarily looking to get a control of the company. They look in the usual sectors: banking, cements, breweries, and a few others. But mostly, recently, have been in the banking sector.
Regarding Africa's infrastructure, what's the great need that you see for the infrastructure there?
The needs are everywhere, meaning from the airports to the roads to the telecommunications are actually quite good, but from basic infrastructure, so from the hotels to the roads to the airports to the ports, pipelines, and so on.
So bringing in outside investors from the U.S., how can that improve the infrastructure of Africa?
I mean, well, again, we're talking about direct investment versus then, financial investments into these countries, but it can improve the things tremendously. The continent is growing. The themes are related to, various countries, to the various resources, and any infrastructure improvement makes actually countries more efficient.
What do you see the projected growth, say, 2 years from now for Africa? And
For the continent?
Yeah.
I still think that continent, no matter what, can deliver 5 to 6% growth across the board on average, GDP growth.
Is there any particular country that you are interested in over another?
Well, Kenya looks very interesting now, given that 7-8 countries actually are feeding off Kenya, and then you have oil and gas play there. Nigeria post-election could be coming back to the favor again. Ghana always has been a pillar of democracy and openness, and then a few others. But those are like the, Mauritius with doubling the tourism capacity and infrastructure and so on. But those are just few to name. I think you can pretty much find the case in all of the places in Africa.
What's your opinion about China's footprint in Africa now and the growth and the investment that's going on?
Well, if nobody else wants to take the opportunity, it goes to Chinese. I mean, I wish the American companies were more aggressive there, as Chinese are. But overall, whoever can help the continent wins the game at the end of the day. So I have nothing against it if they actually leave a footprint after them, which is either in some kind of infrastructure or facility or program or know-how.
But that's only one portion of what's available and the opportunities for investing, specifically America, other countries, the United States. So it's not so much taking the piece of the pie, but they have been one of the initiators investing and also extracting the resources.
Well, obviously they are in need of resources because they do have a human resource, but they lack every other one. So wherever you can find and cement the supply of it, they'll go for it. As I said, as long as they leave something behind them, I think Africa benefits in the long run.
My name is Manzi Regasira, and I'm Head of Strategy and Special Projects at NMB. NMB is Tanzania's largest bank. We do personal banking, small business banking, and wholesale banking. We have the widest distribution network in the country, 150 branches, 550 ATMs, and we employ about 3,000 people. And I'm here on behalf of my boss, CEO, by the name of Mark Vissing. He won CEO of the Year 2014. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He sent me on his behalf to represent him and the bank.
Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to ask you, how do you see Africa playing a major role on the global market and the global scale?
I think it's an exciting time for the continent. I think the media, investors, foreign governments are beginning to recognize that Africa is not just a place full of, troubles and ills and poverty, but a continent with a lot of potential. And more importantly, I think Africans themselves are starting to realize that, which is critical. I think from that, we're starting to see a more proactive engagement of the world. So I think Africa is beginning to stand up for itself, trying to negotiate better deals with the US, with China. And they also recognizing that they need to step up and they need to take responsibility for their own development. Africa is not a country, it's a continent of 54 countries. But I think as a continent, though, we are recognizing that and we're making strides in the right direction. Some faster than others, but generally it's going the right direction.
What are some of the areas that Tanzania is looking to far as investment to grow the country?
Tanzania right now, we really want to get investment in agriculture. We have 60% of the land is fertile but unused. And Tanzania itself is bigger than France and Portugal and all those combined. So it's a massive open area where people, you can basically feed half the continent or feed, a large section of the global population. So agriculture is a key sector. We also have mining. We're the fourth largest gold producer. And we also have a lot of natural gas. And that's only going to grow in the coming years. But more importantly, what we want to focus on is developing human capital, because that's really the core resource. It doesn't deplete the same way gas and those things do. So we want to transfer skills and technology to the country and help the country move up the value chain of production, starting by improving education, improving healthcare, in order to strengthen our human capital so that we can grow and be more than just a resource kind of economy, be really a sort of like a high-tech service economy.
So what is your company doing to increase the growth of the human capital, to increase the...
Yeah, that's a good question. So NMB as a bank, we have a special focus on agriculture. So we try to help farmers and farming communities get together, provide them funding and the resources they need to expand their businesses. So that's one way which we're trying to help the local economy. But also what we also do is try to help small-scale entrepreneurs. So one business which is very popular, or one way young, mostly sort of undereducated men make money in Tanzania is through riding motorbikes. So they're drivers, delivery people, and so forth. And that's it's become a key source of income. So what we do actually, we provide financing for them to get that motorbike. So we provide vehicle leasing and those kind of things. So these are things which they can actually use to create a livelihood for themselves. So those are just some of the initiatives that we do. Agriculture, vehicle leasing, particularly around motorbikes and so forth. And that's on the side of that, we have our own social corporate social responsibility, where we focus on education and health and so forth. So we try to do as much as we can for the economy and for the people.
What type of fair trade policies are being implemented within the agriculture sector? And then also too, what type of education or training is given to those that are not familiar with agriculture, is not grown into those families that farm?
So in terms of agricultural policies and free trade agreements, Tanzania is part of the group of African countries that has preferential access to American markets in terms of agriculture. So that's a major opportunity for U.S. investors. So if U.S. investors want to come, invest, build, or set up some sort of infrastructure in Tanzania and then export it back into the U.S., the cost benefit will be quite great, because those imports into the U.S. are not taxed. There are no import duties, nothing like that. So that's something that we're quite proud of, and we have that agreement in place with the U.S. In terms of what we're doing to help people, educate themselves about sort of agriculture and how to improve their livelihoods, along with the loans that we try to give, we also try to give education as well, basic training. Unfortunately, there's only so much we can do as a bank because that's not necessarily our core business, but we do recognize that it's more than just giving somebody money in a loan. It's about trying to educate somebody and trying to help them grow as individuals so that they can not only just repay your loan, but grow as individuals, grow their livelihood, and which ultimately is beneficial for everyone, really. So.
Any final words?
No final words. Grateful for being interviewed, and thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Great pleasure.
Recently, Ghana has been one of the top performers in Africa and has been seen as one of the countries that has the potential to be the next batch of emerging nations from Africa. That has not been without its challenges. Over the last 5 years, our economy has grown significantly. In 2011, with the advent of oil and gas, it was touted to be the fastest growing economy at almost 14% of GDP that year. Over the last several years, our average growth rate has been above 6%, and last year was 7.4%. But we've had macroeconomic challenges as a result of several factors. I'm not ready to recount here, but from 2012, we began to see a deficit on the fiscal of close to 12%, 11.8% of GDP. And we gradually saw an increase in inflation. And as at last August, inflation had crept up from single digit to 15.9%. We also saw a slide in the value of the currency of almost 30%, which was significant. And so we have been taking corrective measures to restore macroeconomic stability. We came out with a homegrown fiscal consolidation policy, which we started to implement to increase revenues and bring expenditures back under control. One of the major problems we have had has been with the wage bill. We were implementing a new salary scheme to create equity in the public sector wage bill, and it ran away and created a wage spiral, which increased wages from somewhere slightly above 3 billion to almost 9 billion Ghana cedis, which was a very significant increase in expenditure. But we've been putting in place steps to try and tame, that over expenditure. Recently, we realized that we needed, some more assistance to be able to get the situation under control, and so we made a request to the IMF to come and work with us to implement a program. And so as I was leaving Ghana, we had an IMF team that was working with us to come up with a new program. We anticipate that the preliminary talks should be over by this week, 25th, and then we'll continue during the annual meetings of the World Bank and the IMF. And it's my hope that by January, we should start a 3-year IMF program to try and stabilize the macroeconomic environment, but also not only stabilize the macro environment, also undertake a strong program of institutional reforms in order that we create a sustainable base for the macro to be sustainable over time. We are also looking at a strong program which would bring in the World Bank and the IMF and all the other developmental institutions to institute a program that continues to guarantee investments in economic infrastructure in order that the economy can continue to grow, and also to grow the private sector in order that we're able to create more jobs. As part of the program too, I want to see a strong social intervention program that helps to cushion the poor and vulnerable in society. And so these are the vision, and this is the vision in which we're going into discussions with the IMF. We recently went on the market for our third Eurobond, and I must say with some amount of success. I had feared the worst. There were anticipation of coupon rates of about 9%. We came in massively at 8.125%, which was quite a relief for us. A lot of that money is going to go into our capital expenditure, investment in infrastructure, but a significant portion of it, 250 million of it, is going to go into what we call the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, which is going to be a new investment vehicle for financing infrastructure in Ghana. Ghana has a huge need for investment in respect of our fledgling oil and gas sector, which has very good prospects going forward. We have several American companies out of Texas working in Ghana, Cosmos, Banco, and Hess, and so many of them are active in Ghana's hydrocarbon sector. The potential is good. We have one operational field, which is the Jubilee field, and there's a second field that is expected to come on stream in 2016, which is the 10th field that would increase the amount of oil that Ghana is able to produce. In addition, we have a third prospect, which is the ENI Sankofa field, which we expect will come on stream end 2016 into 2017. And so the potential of a growing oil and gas industry in Ghana is very good. We are about to commission a gas processing plant to bring in enough gas to initially power about 500 megawatts of thermal energy. That will be expanded as the new prospects in oil and gas come on stream, like the 10 field and the Sankofa field, which has a lot of gas. And so as a result of that, we are in partnership with the United States of America. I came away from the last US Africa Summit with the most tangible results back to my people, with a check of almost $500 million under the Millennium Challenge Compact, which is supposed to be invested into the energy sector. We're looking to position Ghana as an energy hub of West Africa to produce enough power both to meet the increasing demand for power of our own country, but become a net exporter of power to countries that have a deficit. Most of them who are neighbors have a deficit in power, and so we're looking to increase our own power production so that we can export the excess to other countries that have a huge demand for power. The NCC investment is supposed to go into generation, transmission, and distribution to improve efficiency of the whole value chain for power production. One of the things we're envisaging under the Millennium Challenge Compact is a strong private sector participation in power production in Ghana. And so we have an MOU with General Electric, which we call the Ghana 1000 project, to produce 1,000 megawatts of power and inject it into the Ghanaian transmission grid. There are other independent power producers who have signed power purchase agreements to set up gas-fired thermal plants, to be able to produce power both to satisfy Ghana's power demand and also for export through what we call the West African Power Pool. Ghana is a member of the Power Pool through which all the transmission grids of the West African countries are interconnected. And so if you have excess power in one country, you can transfer it to another country. We have opportunities for investment in transport. For those of you who know West Africa, there are several significant ports along the West African coast, washed by the Atlantic Ocean, and the significant ones are the Abidjan port, Dakar port, Tema port, Lomé port, and the Lagos port in Apapa. All these ports are in competition with each other to generate as much traffic as we can, and so we are about to embark on a major expansion of our main port, which is the Tema port, to be able to improve the volumes that come in and to improve the turnaround time of ships so that we can bring our imports in faster with less hassle, and then also to be able to capture more of the traffic of the landlocked countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. We're also looking to position Ghana as the aviation hub for West Africa, with a strong sub-regional feed into Accra as the transit stop to put passengers on long-haul aircrafts to Europe, to America, to Asia, to Latin America, and the Middle East. And so that's another of the visions we have. Other sectors in which there's been strong investment is telecoms. Ghana has one of the widest, extensions of broadband mobile in the sub-region, and anywhere I go in the country, even the remotest places, I'm able to access my internet and do my WhatsApp messaging and all that. So it's a good environment. Agriculture is also a priority, and we are looking to increase production of many staples that our people eat and other agricultural products in respect of their value chain. And so we're seeing strong investment in rice production, in soya, in maize production, in poultry, in aquaculture, in tomato production, in vegetable cooking oil, and all that. And so investors who are interested in that sector, can take a look. Let me just end up with what most investors are concerned about, and that is risks. You want to minimize your risk as much as possible. Of course, Ghana is in West Africa, and so all the risks in respect of security, in respect of health, affect our country too. In West Africa, the three main flashpoints are northern Mali, because of the activities of the Tuareg rebels in that area. The other flashpoint is northeastern Nigeria in respect of Boko Haram and the security threat that it poses. And the next risk you might talk about is in 2015, 5 of our countries in West Africa are going to go to elections with different factors that could pose as risks in any election year. But I believe that we have the mechanisms to be able to handle a lot of this, and we're doing that. We had to send a peace force into Mali to guarantee Mali's sovereignty. And since then, there have been talks going on, first in Burkina Faso and Ouagadougou, in which a roadmap was agreed. And just a few months ago, after the ECOWAS meeting, another meeting was convened in Algeria, and all the protagonists to the tensions in Mali signed on to the roadmap, to try and resolve that issue. And so that one is going quite properly. Not so the Boko Haram menace. Boko Haram is expanding its ability to inflict more violence in Nigeria, and we need to work around and see how we can find a solution to that threat. Happily, the international community has responded, US, France, and UK, and they are working together with the Nigerian government to see how they can mount a better response to the threat that Boko Haram poses in the sub-region. Like I said, 2015, we have Guinea, we have Nigeria, we have Cote d'Ivoire, we have Burkina Faso, we have Togo, all going for elections, and each of them carry their own risks. With Burkina Faso, is the issue of the term limit. The incumbent president is wanting to amend the constitution to allow him to run, another term in office, and that is creating its own tensions. In Nigeria, of course, I spoke about Boko Haram and what is happening there. In Cote d'Ivoire is fairly more stable, and as long as the alliance between the PDC and President Ouattara's party holds, my expectation is that that government might win a second term, and I guess that would be a good thing for Cote d'Ivoire, having come out of a conflict that was created by a disputed election. I think that some stability in Cote d'Ivoire will be helpful to the whole sub-region. Guinea has elections too, and there will be quite some tensions there. My hope is that we'll be able to manage those tensions in order that they have a good election and they're able to continue on the road to peace. Togo is our neighbor, and we take an interest in what happens there. And I'm sure that with the mechanisms we have in ECOWAS, we'll be able to ensure that all these elections go peacefully and we don't have any untoward situation. I guess the most topical threat currently is Ebola, and I visited the 3 Ebola countries recently as a visit of solidarity to try to break the ostracization that they have been subjected to as a result of the disease. This is the first time there's been an outbreak of Ebola in West Africa, and it actually caught everybody by surprise. Our people don't understand the disease. They don't, really know how to react to it. And so the initial reaction has been one of panic, one of misunderstanding. But during my recent visit, I realized that people are coming to terms, so that they're beginning to understand how the disease is spread, and with knowledge and awareness comes power. And so the people are getting empowered to be able to protect themselves. My anticipation is that if all of us put our shoulders to it, I mean, within a 6 to 9 months period, we should be able to turn this outbreak around and send it back to where it came from. And so with those words, I guess I'll end here, and thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.